Where are we? There we go.
Reading.
How are you?
I'm
Can
great.
you hear us?
How are you?
Good.
We can hear you really well. Yes?
Yep, we can hear you. I'll look at the camera. So, yeah, you're coming in pretty well right now. You guys are looking fit and healthy. How's the waves?
They got bigger about 2 hours ago. So
Okay, we heard there was a storm coming your way. Excellent.
yeah, we can actually show you what we love right now. Would you like that?
Yeah. So,
So we've got a monitor over here where we're keeping
Yep.
where we're keeping the wind flow in here. So I'm gonna just get this in nice and close. Is that focused for you guys?
oh my goodness, yes.
All right, we've got you guys right over here. We sailed out of Punta
Gotcha.
Arenas, which is
Yeah.
way down here. And now we're at that dot right there. So you can see
Wow.
we're in a place where a lot of weather, sorry, little roll there, where a lot of weather is converging on us. So Cyan, this is Cyan. She's gonna be the person running the video while we take the tour. And she's gonna do her level best not to get you guys seasick.
Yep.
And
So,
then we've also got to a few other people before we get started. Gisela Winkler is right over here. She's one of the co-chiefs for the cruise. So this is her big vision that we're all out here to implement. Hi. Nice to meet you. And then over here, so how many EAOS students do we have in there? If you're in EAOS, put your hand in the air.
yep.
Got a handful? Awesome. So you guys in EAOS, this is Chris Moy. He's also a lecturer at the University of Otago. And if you stick around and take two next semester, he'll be one of your lecturers.
That's right. Yeah, so hopefully I'll see many of you in person next semester in July and August when we get off the boat.
Excellent. So I've got two more people to introduce you to. We're going to flip around. We've got a documentary film crew out here who are hoping to make a documentary out of our expedition. Over here we've got Ollie. And over here we've got Brian.
Hi, Brian.
And they're going to be around for the conference. So, all right. Do you guys have any questions before we get started?
So yeah, so we're Christina. I'll be handing the microphone around to people. So yeah, just basically thanks a lot from all of us for doing this. I see the time's a little better than yesterday when we did the test. You're not quite so hard, but yeah, okay. So just opening it up. Does anyone have any burning questions right now before we get going on the tour? We know where you are. Okay, here we go. Sophie's on.
Hi, Christina. I'm just hoping that the tour will include something about life on the boat as well. So maybe like your living quarters, where you eat dinner, potentially. I'm always intrigued.
We can show you where we eat. We actually can't show you our living quarters because everybody on the boat is on a 12-hour shift. And so when we leave our cabin in the morning, it becomes our cabin mate's property. So when I close the door behind myself at noon, I'm not allowed to go back in there until midnight. But I can definitely show you. Oh, we might be able to show you. We can show you the camera crew's cabin because they share one, and they're both here right now.
Awesome.
So we might not get signal down in that part of the boat, but we'll see how it goes. And I think can we take you to the galley? Can we get to the galley? So we'll take you to the galley so you can see where we eat.
So Christina, do you want questions from us now or after you've shown us around? Because there'll be a few questions.
So I think, if there are any burning questions right now, we can do them. This is a pretty quiet part of the ship, so it's a good place to talk. We could take a couple of questions now, and then our plan is to show you the track that we followed so far. You'll see going. We'll take you outside. So we've got a door to the outside of the boat here. We'll take you to a place. It's dark outside. It's 9 p.m. Sun is rising right now around noon and setting around 7 at our location. So we'll take you out. It'll be pretty dark out there, but we'll take you to an overlook where we can show you the drill rig floor, and we'll try to get you a view of the derrick. It's not lit up right now, but we'll do the best we can. Then we'll take you down. So that's where the cores are. It's where the drilling happens. It's where the cores are collected. And then we'll take you down a deck. You'll see where they come onto the catwalk. That's where the technicians, so you guys in EAOS, you've done a lab with this stuff. You know that we start with a 9.5 meter core, and then it gets cut into 5.5 meter sections. So you'll see exactly where that happens, all those cores you looked at as part of your marine sediments lab. And then we'll come in, we'll give you a tour through the labs on that main deck. Chris will show you what the sedimentologists
Hi, Chris.
I have. There are some folks in the micropaleo lab who will show you what those activities are. Then we'll take you down one more deck. We'll show you the geochemistry space, and we'll talk about a couple of the different things you can do geochemically on a ship, and you'll be able to see how incredible the lab facilities are here. Then probably we'll go right down to the galley so you can get a peek at where we eat, and then we'll bring you back up to the micropaleo lab because it's a nice enclosed space, and we can have a good Q&A there. So my plan is the places where we're able to hear you well, we'll pause for a couple of minutes after we show you around, and if anybody's got a question about that space, you can ask it then. And then at the end, we'll have a pretty extended time for questions.
Okay, so just a sort of a scene setting type question. What is the expedition called, and who's running it and funding it, and how long?
Right, so the expedition is called Dynamics of the Pacific Antarctic Circumpolar Current. So our catchy acronym is DYNAPAC. And the objective of our expedition is to understand how the carbon cycle in the Southern Ocean, right? So you guys know that there's a lot of carbon dioxide stored in the ocean, dissolved in the ocean. And we're trying to figure out how the dynamics of that big circulation cell, so the kind of thing you learned about when Rob Smith gave you lectures. So we want to understand how the dynamics of that big circulation cell have changed in the past and how that's influenced the carbon cycle. So Gisela over there, who you met at the very beginning, she's hanging out by our fancy coffee machine. That's the most precious piece of equipment on the boat.
Looks nice.
So Gisela is people whose vision we're all out here to implement. The program itself is funded by the International Ocean Discovery Program. That program is really cool because 24 different nations come together and make contributions that allow all of us to be on the ship together. So it's a really international crew out here. We've got, Chris and I are here representing New Zealand. Gisela is German, but she's representing the US here. We have a Spanish scientist who you'll meet downstairs who's representing Britain. We've got people from Germany. We've got people from Korea. So pretty much all 24 from Brazil, you'll meet one of our Brazilian scientists. So pretty much all 24 of the nations who contribute a little bit to the overall program have opportunities to send their scientists up this. Our expedition officially started on the 21st of May, and we'll be back in Punta Arenas, Chile on the 21st of July. And then we'll be back in New Zealand almost immediately so that we can teach you guys fun things in second semester. So,
great, thanks, Christina. So anyone got any burning questions? Here we go.
Do you do any sort of science communication or educational things on JOIDES? Like science communication? So,
Can
The question was, do you do any science communication or education stuff while on board, or outreach?
we do an enormous amount of science communication, education, and outreach. And in fact, this is our communication, education, and outreach officer. Cyan, do you want to tell them what you're doing out here and how they can follow us?
Yes, so I am officially the Science Communication Outreach Officer on board. That is my position and title. And I'm a community college professor from Phoenix, Arizona. And I run the JOIDES website, which is joidesresolution.org. I also do the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So you can follow along at JOIDES Resolution or at the JR on Twitter. And it would be great to hear you guys post some comments.
Awesome. All right, so I think if it's okay with you guys, we'll start the walking tour. Does that sound good?
Okay.
So
I'm sure there'll be some
you
questions.
people in the room are gonna need some like visual cues because I can't actually see Mark very well, so I'll need some visual cues when you can hear me. And if you have questions and if you've understood things, if you can like give me a thumbs up or nod or yell. Can you guys, if you guys all say, "Hi, Christina," will I be able to hear it? 3, 2, 1. All right, I can hear that. That's awesome. You guys are great. All right, so I'm going to put a hard hat on. There are parts of the ship that we have to wear personal protective equipment to access, and we're going to take you into one of those areas right now. So I'm going to stick on my hard hat and my glasses, and we'll get you, oh, and my hat. It's actually pretty warm here. You guys probably saw that our wind was coming from the north, so it was 8 degrees out today, which might be warmer than it was in Dunedin. But it's cooler now because we've entered a front. So I'm going to toss my jacket on and we'll head outside to take a look. All right, here we go. I've got glasses. It's going to be pretty dark out here and pretty loud, so I'll just point to some things and then I'll talk to you about them when we get back inside. All right, so here you guys can see down onto the rig floor. Make sure this gets angled down. So the drilling happens right behind these big hydraulic lines. And then if we turn this up, you might get a view of the drilling derrick way up there in the sky. When we get inside, I will ask the technicians how tall that derrick is. And then I'll just rotate you around and you'll probably, can you guys see the ocean out there? Just under that yellow railing, there we go. So you can probably see the deck and the ocean running past. Everybody good here? Are you frozen? They're good, okay. So all the cores, after they're drilled, the drillers bring them right through that door down there. Chris, you want to go down and stand on those stairs? Right, so here, where Chris is, the cores come in through the door, and now we'll go downstairs and I'll show you where we receive them. So you just take a quick peek up onto the rig floor there.
All right, so I'll give a little bit of a brief tour out here, super quick. So this is obviously where all the drillers and all the workmen will be working, and there's a little red hatch there in between those two bits of red equipment, and that's essentially a hole that can be opened up, and that's where we'll be loading all of our drill pipe through and our coring devices through. So we also have some heavy equipment that will come over from the left-hand side over here. That's the iron roughneck. That can support the weight of the whole drill string as it's being suspended and lowered into the water column. And then if you look towards the back of the vessel, can't really see much right now, but this is where all of our drill pipe come in. So each section of drill pipe is approximately 30 meters. It'll come through that bit of red equipment there, and it will be stood up vertically and then lowered into the hole, into the moon pool, which is right below us. So the moon pool is that opening to the ocean and to the seafloor that's pretty much right in the center of the ship underneath the derrick.
All right, so cores come down off the rig floor. We have an incredible team of technicians to work here on the ship. They work 2 months, they get 2 months off, and then they work another 2 months. And one of those incredible people, Susan is a thin section technician on the ship, and she's going to show us what happens to the core liners and the cores once they come down off the catwalk. Hey, I'm one of the technicians, so it would be our job, like Christine said, to bring the cores from directly from the driller. So we're some of the first people to get our hands on that material, which is kind of exciting. And as you guys, I guess, saw in your labs, you get cores. This big long core liner, and then we use these pretty nifty custom-made core slicers to cut the cores more into manageable 1.5 meter long sections. And then what you have left over is about, I don't know, you can get like 4 or 8 of these sections. And then we put end caps on them so nothing spills out of our precious material. And then we'll bring it inside. I'll show you a little bit of that workflow. So here we have, you can see that one up there, our field program, affectionately named Laser Kitty. It's just a program made by one of our own employees. Again, like everything in here is like, it's really custom built and engineered by us just for our specific purposes. So we'll put all our core sections in here to give them an official and forever birthmark. Have our little Laser Kitty logo going. We try to make it at least a little bit entertaining.
Can you get in really
yeah,
close?
You can see some of the smoke. It is actually burning into the plastic so that it will basically always have its unique label, so it will never be misplaced or misidentified for many decades to come. And most importantly, you always need to know which way is up or down in the course. You wouldn't want to flip it, and then you'll have your whole millions of years upside down and backwards, and your data's not going to make any sense. So from here, we do put a neat little code on it, so we have scanners on all our machines that we can just use a little hand scanner. We'll put it through the whole round checks. I don't know if you want to explain. No, it'll be like physical properties, like it'll tell us how dense the material is, or how like magnetic the material is. And once we're done analyzing it as a whole section, we really want to split it open and see what's inside of it. I think that's one of the most exciting parts. Oh, actually, I need my fake core liner. to do it to the actual core.
Can you hear us?
This is can you hear us?
We can hear. This is awesome, but we can hear, but it's a little hard to hear when you turn your head away from the video cam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So we'll try to speak as close as we can to the tablet.
Great. So yeah, so the next step, we'll take our core into the splitting room, and we'll put it on this little track here. Again, custom-made little device just for us. We kind of lock that core into place, and it's basically a glorified cheese cutter. There's just 2 blades on the side to cut the plastic, and just a wire to cut the core. Oh no, I didn't have it set on. It's gonna have to reset itself. But yeah, that's gonna slice down the middle and open up your core basically like a hot dog bun. So you have like 2 sides of it that open, and then the scientists really get to get in there and describe all the colors. I think Chris will get into that and pick samples out. One side we'll always keep unsampled, and we call it the archive half, and that will go back to a repository either in the United States, in Bremen, Germany, or maybe Kochi, Japan. And that nice piece of core will remain unmessed around with for many decades until maybe scientists need to request specially for that material. But the other half, the scientists are free to take their samples and send those to other labs like the chemistry lab or the XRD lab or whatever else they're looking for. Awesome. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Let's Chris now.
Here we go.
Describing.
So at this point, we've taken our core, we've run it through some instruments, we've split it, and we take one of those core apps here and follow me. All right, we end up over here, and so this is the hub of the core lab that we're in right now. And so what happens, especially for the very first core that comes up on deck, is that after they get split, they all get brought out to this table, and essentially the whole team of scientists come out to take a look at the core, the first core that comes up. It's really exciting to see, and especially for this trip. You know, we were expecting to do a lot of coring along the Chilean margin, maybe 24 hours outside of Punta Arenas, but because of some logistical challenges, we opted to go actually out into our Southern Ocean sites where we're heading to right now. And so when the first core comes on deck in about 48 hours, you can imagine that most of the team will be out here, you know, checking it out, seeing what it looks like, and going from there. But, you know, the rest of the science group is split up into teams, and my team is the sedimentology team. So I'll be working with 4 other sedimentologists from essentially from noon till about midnight. And we have another team of 4 that come on at midnight and take over. And our major job here is to describe the sediment cores that show up on this table. And so we can do that a number of ways. We can certainly get some information from the logging instruments that we push the core through, but we can also make very macroscopic descriptions of the sediment. And actually what you're looking at right here is actually quite special. This is one of the core sections that was collected off the Hikurangi margin, so just off the eastern coast of the North Island during an IODP expedition within the last 12 to 18 months or so. So this is it's an upper core, and you can see it has a pretty dramatic stratigraphy. You guys see it? And you can see that there's some very clear contacts between different types of sediment. As you come down here, you can see something that should stand out even from the video on the iPad, and that is this really kind of abrupt contact that's obviously very sharp and cross-cuts the underlying sediment below. And this actually here is an ash deposit. It's probably a reworked ash deposit from one of the North Island volcanoes, perhaps Taupo, perhaps another North Island volcano that erupted over the last few thousand years, probably a middle to late Holocene eruption. And so those show up quite clear. And we can characterize the kind of changes in the sedimentology by certainly logging these changes, but we can also image them as well. And so I'll take you to one of the tracks over here. Bear with me. Here we go. So this is one of the fantastic things about this ship. Not only do we have incredible drilling capability, but we have a top-notch laboratory to get a first-order characterization of all the mud that we collect. And that's huge. I mean, these are fantastic bits of pit that can really help us look at the changes we see down on core. What's really good is that they made it really easy for scientists like me that, you know, can sometimes maybe mislabel things or, you know, maybe get like core sections, you know, not necessarily confused, but we're going to be pushing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters of core through these systems. So all the end caps have barcodes, and all the barcodes can be scanned like that. And so essentially, you can see here that all of the information is entered into the computer here. And what we can do is take a high-resolution picture of the core. And here it goes. So this is a line scan camera. So it's collecting kind of slices of the core surface. So photographic slices as it goes down core. And we have an array of LED lights that provides very intense but very even lighting over the core surface. And so that's really, really helpful, right? So all the cores that we will collect will be imaged like this. And you guys have worked with core images from the JOIDES Resolution in your labs earlier this semester. You've seen that, and you've seen how you can capture the stratigraphy with those images. What's really helpful for the sedimentologists is that along with that photo, we also get our graphic log sheet here. So we have a sheet with the core image. This is the image of the core that I just, a picture of the core that I just scanned. And we also have information that will record on the log sheet. So contacts where there's changes in grain size, erosive contacts like what we saw below the ash. We'll document color changes down the core. We'll also document changes where the drilling, where there's been some drilling disturbance due to changes in the ship's motion, which we'll expect to see a lot of so far. We'll expect to see a lot of that. So that's a lot of the things that we'll characterize as sedimentologists. We'll also use toothpicks, and we'll take very small samples of the sediment. This is another Hikurangi margin core, but it's dried out a little bit. That's why it looks a little bit lighter. But we also have a toolkit that's pretty much exactly what you guys have been exposed to at EAOS, right? We have grain size comparator cards, we have a hand lens, we have acid bottles, we have rulers, and we have scrapers to actually scrape the core surface clean when it first arrives on the core. So these are all of our this is our toolkit. And I think you're very familiar with it. And again, as sedimentologists, we'll be doing this for 5 kilometers of mud. 5 kilometers of mud. So when I see you guys, I hope to see many of you guys in 112 next semester, and I'll show you some highlights. I'll show you the ups and the downs and some of the really key parts of this journey. So we're just ready to get going. In about 48 hours, it's gonna be madness. It's gonna be full on. So it's gonna be fun. All right, I'm gonna pass you back to Christina.
So do you guys have any questions for Chris before we go into the next lab? Let's actually step over here because we've got a really loud instrument behind us.
Questions, anyone? Sophie's got one.
Go ahead, Sophie.
It looks like there's space for a lot of core loggers in there. How many core loggers would be working at one time?
So we have four on each shift, and we'll kind of divide up the tasks. We'll have a couple of people at the description table there, essentially filling in those log or barrel sheets. We'll have a couple, one person taking the core and imaging it. We have a brand new X-ray system on board. So I'll show you one quick thing here. Like all of the computer systems, the whole network and all the data that's collected on all the different instruments, it's all networked, it's all available. And so that core that we just took an image of, sorry. So that core we just took an image of, earlier in the day, we took some X-ray images of that. So you can come in here and we can see some of the density information that we get. And so this is one of the very valuable tools that we have here to collect data. And so that's that contact we saw with the ash deposit in the imagery in the core section. So we'll have two people describing, one person making smear slides or microscope slides of the sediment and kind of essentially ascribing a lithology to that mud. And then we'll have another person kind of moving things around. So we'll be full on. We'll be really busy.
Any other questions for Chris before we go look at microscopic things?
So Steve wants to ask, why is there some Hikurangi core on the ship right now?
That's a good question. So one of the things that once we get on station here in about 48 hours, what the drillers will do is to start assembling essentially the drill pipe with the drill bit at the end of it, all the way through the water column, right? And they're going to send it. We're going to be at a water depth of I think about 4,000 meters or so, right?
4,011 meters.
So it's going to be. So we're going to have a lot of drill pipe on that, and it expands a little bit, and certainly our position over the respective drill hole will kind of shift around as the winds and the currents move us. And oftentimes they'll have a pretty good idea of depth, but what they want from the very first hole is a snapshot of not only the mud, but also the water that's right on top of it, essentially the sediment water interface. And so when they're trying to do that, oftentimes the first time they'll do that, they'll overshoot and they'll over-penetrate the core and not get any water. And so those cores are the ones that are collected or kept for practice, essentially for training purposes on the ship. So that's why we have one here.
Cool, that makes sense.
Awesome. So, another question.
Sorry, you're getting a very good
Hello,
image of my inner ear.
it's Kaylee.
Trying to do it so I can.
How long do you spend at each site when you take a core?
That's another good question. It depends entirely on the sequence of sediments that we're going to recover. So I think for this next site, we're planning about 6.5 days or so, and we're going to try to get about 300 meters of mud, and we're going to try to do that in 3 holes.
So we have 3 copies of the same material, and we get 3 copies because you have little gaps between your cores. And so if the first copy has cores in these 2 positions, Chris, you want to be the second copy?
Yep.
Yeah, so the second copy
Hopefully.
covers the gaps. Yep. So we think if we collect 3 holes, we'll end up with a gapless core. So we have people on the ship whose only job is to look at the variations in the core and stitch together a composite from all 3 of those holes. So, all right, I think we're going to move on to the next lab, and then we'll come back for more questions at the end. Sound good? Yes, sounds good. All right. So, one of the very first samples we take, even out on the catwalk before the cores come in to get laser engraved and split in half, we take a whole round from the very bottom, and that goes to the paleontology team, right? And so I'm part of the paleontology team on this ship, and our only job while we're at sea is to tell the co-chiefs and everyone else in the science party how old the sediment is. And we can do that because evolve. So through here, we have a really incredible microscope lab. We have people who specialize in every fossil group we expect to find over the course of all 7 of our sites. So here we've got, this is Igor. Igor is one of our foreign paleontologists, and you can see over here, he's looking at a slide of planktonic forams. So you guys are familiar with these from your lab. These are carbonate microfossils. So we only find these in sites where we're drilling above the CCD, the calcite compensation depth. And the slide that Igor has here is a slide of crucial markers that have specific ages. And so that slide came out with one of our other micropaleontologists as a means of comparing the specimens that we find in these cores we're about to collect with specimens of known identity. Right? So this will be a really good reference material as we start to drill. We also have a scanning electron microscope on the ship. So this is our little benchtop SEM. It's pretty incredible that we're able to collect SEM images while we're at sea, even when we're in waves that are sort of 3 or 4 meters high. So here's an image that was collected yesterday. We have some scientists on board who are sampling the water as we steam toward our first site. It's really unusual for ships to be down here in the winter. You know, it's a pretty desolate part of the ocean, and it's a pretty difficult time to be at sea. And so we really don't have a good idea even of what's growing in the modern ocean today. So these guys have been filtering water samples 4 times a day, and you can sort of zoom in here. We've got, this is a chalcolithophore, so this would make nanofossil ooze, which is a lithology you guys are all familiar with. And you can see there's a scale bar on that. It's 3 microns across. You can almost, there we go. So this scale bar right here is 3 microns. So that plant, that's a microscopic plant that's about 4 or 5 microns wide. And we're able to get really beautiful images of this and some other specimens right here on the desktop SEM. So we've got a bunch of other fossil groups that we use. So because we have a range of sites here, right? We have some sites that are close to Chile. We have some sites that are at pretty shallow water depths. And those sites will be really great for our calcareous team, the micropaleontologists who work on calcite-based microfossils. For me, the sites that are really interesting are the ones that are south of the polar front where we get a lot of diatoms. So I'll bring you through here. Here we've got Raj. Raj is our benthic foram micropaleontologist. He's the only one of his kind on the ship. So he only works 12 hours a day, and that means there are going to be lots of benthic forams waiting for him every day at noon. And he's put up some images of the organisms he works with here, right? So they're really beautiful. They're quite a lot larger than the calcareous nanofossils. So these scale bars, I guess, are probably all 100 microns compared to the 3 micron scale bar that we looked at before. And then over here we've got, so these are some of the microscopes. This is one of the stations where I can look at diatoms, and then I have a second station over here, And then we've got people working with calcareous nanofossils and some other groups down at the far end as well. Let's make a loop out and just see if anybody's processing anything in the paleo lab. And once we've done that, we'll go have a quick stop in chemistry, and then we'll go down to the galley. So it looks like Mariam's not in here right now. She's been filtering those water samples here in this lab. The paleo lab, this is our prep lab, and it's great because it has the 2 best windows on the ship. So everybody's envious of the micropaleontologists because we're some of the few people who get to look outside during the cruise. There's Chris opening the window for us. It's black outside right now. And the captain actually doesn't like the windows to be open, so most of our cruise is in the dark, right? We've got maybe 7 hours of daylight right now, so most of the time the ship is in the dark. And the captain likes us to keep the blinds shut when it's dark because the light from the ship interferes with his ability to see what's in front of him. So, all right,
Christina,
anybody have any questions about that?
what's your degrees latitude at the moment?
So right now we're at 53 degrees south, and our first site is at 54, I think, the first site we're going to. So we've been like gradually working our way gently south. Our furthest south site for this cruise is going to be at 61. Right around 61. All right, you guys want to go down and see the chemistry lab? You want to ask a question?
Chemistry lab.
Chemistry lab. Let's have a trip to the chemistry lab. All right, so we're going to take you into the stairwell now. We might lose signal for a little bit, but if we don't, I'll show you all the cruise logos from cruises since the ship was retrofit in around 2010. Can you guys see? Can you guys hear me? You see me?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, come on down, Cyan. I'm going to point out one specifically. So this is the logo from my last cruise on the JR. This one was in 2010, and I'm really excited to have, I think the logo from this cruise is probably going to go right up on that wall. So it's fun for me to have logos from 2 different cruises. Is your list? So Chris's last cruise, the logo is right there. And this is our first cruise together. All right, sit down to the chem lab. Hey guys! We had a good party. All right, so this is the chem lab. Chong, do you want to give us a tour of the balance?
Sure.
Cool.
Okay, hey everyone, my name's Chong. I'm the chemistry tech on the JR. So this is our organic geometry section. So you'll see a bunch of the instruments around.
Just want to do a pirouette.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a colorimeter here used for measuring the carbonate. And next to this big machine is called CNH analyzer. We use it for measuring the total carbon, nitrogen, and sulfur. And on this side, we have the hydrocarbon reservoir analyzer, which we're not going to use it. As you can see, we cover the wrap on top of it. And this is our scale. You can see there are 2 of them. It's the C is pretty rough. You can't really measure the sample accurate.
And you guys can probably, can you guys see that the numbers are constantly moving?
Not
So
really.
that's the influence. Okay.
We'll show it better, I think, on this.
Yeah, we'll show it better on the other one.
Okay.
So I'm here to tell you, constantly moving because the ship is heaving and dropping and heaving and dropping, and that changes the pressure against the balance plate. So,
exactly. So this is a good example of how hard to measure the sample when the sea is rolling. See the number keep changing here.
yeah.
So do you want me to show them or?
Maybe you can just describe what happens in there.
Okay, so what we do is there are 2 plates here.
I'm gonna get this in real close.
Okay.
So there are two plates here, and we put one of the paper here as a reference. And when we're measuring our samples, we make the same size paper, make it like a small boat, and we put it on the other side of the scale.
Can you guys see that those scales are waving back and forth?
Yes.
Awesome.
And they're very tiny. So when we close the small window here, and then we go back to the software this way, and let's show. So before we measure the sample, we want to make sure that the reference is calibrated. So we click the smile face here, tire, and then the machine will count 100 times. And you see there's the curve changing here. That's when the tire is starting. We're trying to average 100 times the reference in our samples. So making sure we get an average value when the sea is really rough. So you get an estimation how close the wave will be.
Yeah, it's really like, it's incredibly challenging on a ship that's heaving 2 or 3 meters to measure. So these are milligram quantities of material that we're trying to measure. But the ship is incredibly well equipped from a laboratory perspective. I'd say this is probably 2 Otago University buildings full of instruments packed into 2 decks of a ship. So
Impressive.
thanks. Awesome. So we're going to show you guys one more thing in the chem lab. Susan, do you want to show us squeezing?
So this is a big part of what happens in the chemistry lab, and it's the squeezing station. And basically, you'll see that big core that we had upstairs, maybe a 10 or 20 centimeter piece of that will take off, and it's dedicated just to geochemistry. So we would put that piece of core in one of these containers. Yep, here we go. Stick it in here. It's super heavy. And you put the little plunger in. And on these presses, we'll be compressing them up to 30,000 if it's a pretty dry sample and we're really stretched for water. But we'll just take one of these really simple syringes and put it in there. And you'll see over like a few minutes time, it will get filled with pore water. So that pore waters gets used in all the different instruments around the chem lab. So from this pore water, you're going to be dividing up like milliliter per liter to different instruments or different scientists. So it's really precious what comes out of that core. And it'll go to tests like pH and chlorinity, and you can even go through like ICP, which will give you like an elemental array of what's in the sample. So yeah, so those are our squeezers and how we get the little interstitial water out of those.
Awesome. All right, so I know, guys, that we're getting close to the end of time. So we're going to zoom you down to the galley super fast. And then if people want to stick around for a couple minutes at the end, we'll make sure you're cleared out in time for the next class to come through. But the galley is worth a visit. So we'll head down there now. We're going to, again, go back into the stairwell. So it could get a little bit noisy in here, and it could lose you for a couple of minutes, but we shouldn't lose you for too long. And then in every time,
Christina, it's just frozen at the moment, if you can hear me.
All
They're
right.
still there.
We got
Awesome.
you.
Sorry about that, guys.
We can. Thanks, guys.
And by the time we were disconnected, I finished most of my ice cream.
Yeah.
All right.
We're
so
back in the course splitting room, and we'll take any questions that you guys might have.
What papers would you?
Thanks for coming, guys.
Sorry. Yeah. What papers would you suggest taking if I wanted to do a career, something like what JOIDES does?
So if you wanted to do a career in something like this, you're already on the right track. So this year you'd be in EAOS and Geology 112. Next year you would probably take, you take Ewan's, either Ewan's biota class or his basins class. The year after that you would take sedimentology, and you would take marine geology and geophysics, and then sort of all the core papers that we offer in the Geology Department. So we're out here on a leg that focuses on sediments, but there are other expeditions on this ship that focus on hard rock geology. There's an ongoing effort to try to drill to the moho. There are expeditions, as you saw with that core from Hikurangi, there are expeditions that focus on sort of active tectonic questions, and a lot of the really interesting results coming out of the New Zealand space are around active tectonics. I think we had 4 expeditions in our waters in the last 3 years looking at that active tectonic stuff. So you could end up on this ship with almost any aspect of geoscience, right? Anything you do at Otago could be a potential pathway to get you on this boat. Any other questions?
Michael wants to know what flavor your ice cream is, and I want to know what's for dinner tonight.
The ice cream is vanilla, but this afternoon it was chocolate. And
we had fried chicken. So
we had fried chicken, but that was for lunch, right? So we had fried chicken at 6 p.m. and that was our lunch. And we'll have dinner in about 2 hours, and nobody knows what they'll serve. We didn't look at the menu. Any other questions? Ask quick, because my ice cream.
Yep. So Christina, I've got a question, and then Holly's got another one. How on earth does the ship manage to drill in 4,000 meters of water in swell like you experience? That seems to be unbelievable.
So that's an excellent question, and the answer is twofold. So the ship has a really high-tech positioning system. So it has lots of little thruster motors that allow it to sort of dance around and face into the direction that has the lowest heave. We can position ourselves really precisely. Like sometimes the last cruise I was on, we had an iceberg that came our way, and we had to drop a funnel to the seafloor in about 5,000 meters of water. We dropped a funnel onto the seafloor. We ran away from the iceberg. The funnel has a bullseye painted on it. And then after the iceberg passed, we came back onto the site. And that positioning is so elegant that they're able to put a camera on a drill string that's maybe 30 centimeters around. And the ship can just dance around that funnel and lower. It's like lowering a piece of spaghetti from the sky tower and hitting hitting a quarter, hitting a whatever the smallest coin in New Zealand is, hitting that on the sidewalk. So that's one thing that lets us drill in really deep water. Another thing is that the drill rig is equipped with a heave compensator. So even though the ship is going up and down, the rig actually stays in the same position relative to the sea surface. That heave compensator can really only handle about 4 meters of heave. So the heave and the wave height are different. You know, the heave is the amount that the ship is going up and down, and we can, in periods 12, we can drill in waves that are probably bigger than that. When the waves get too big, we actually pull the drill string out of the seafloor, and then we just position the ship into the most comfortable heading, which is usually like directly into the wave. If you guys, if you look on the door of my office, I tacked up a couple photographs from a previous cruise where we were in really big seas, so you can see the whole bow of the ship being buried in the water. And that's a weather pattern, right? So you just sail slowly into the weather, and you do it as long as you have to for the waves to die down, and then you turn around, you go back to your site, and start going again.
No, it's can you hear me? No, cool.
I can hear you.
You know, speaking of food, how do you like preserve the food for the journey or expedition? It's kind of like, you know, the International Space Station where you sort of have freeze dry the food for crew.
So we have this ship is incredible. We have a crew that does all of our catering, and those guys plan months in advance. They pack up huge containers of food and they ship them to whatever port the boat is going to. And those, for a minute? Sure. I'm feeling a little dizzy. Oh, yep. Let's get you out of here. So we've just lost our videographer. The sea got her. I'm gonna turn that in that direction, Chris. Thanks. So the food is all shipped in. Food is really a big source of morale on the ship. That's why we have things like ice cream machines. And they really do, the galley does an incredible job of giving us a lot of variety in food. They have, you know, the people who cook at sea are really experienced in the best ways to preserve fresh food as long as they can. So they have a series of refrigerators at different temperatures. They have really big freezers that keep everything frozen, nice and fresh. They're really careful with the quality of the food they bring out. And they also do things like they can make their own yogurt out here. So we're never really in a conservation mode. If anything, we're in a mode where they feed us too much. And so something I can't show you because we won't be able to keep a signal down there, but there's a really great gym on the ship. So anybody who feels like they've had too many cookie breaks can go down. We've got 3 treadmills, 2 or 3 stationary bikes, a rowing machine, like a weight bench. There's a little boxing, whatever the things are that flap around when you hit them. So we also have a movie room and a lounge. We don't have a ton of time for recreation out here because we are each working 12-hour shifts, and then at the end of your shift, you're writing reports and doing other things. But you have an opportunity to sort of find some diversion. We have a big helicopter deck on the back of the ship, and on warmer expeditions or when the seas are a little bit calmer, if you run around the heli deck 24 times, you run a mile, which is a unit that Americans love to run in. Any other questions?
Any other questions from anyone? Otherwise, we're almost 1 o'clock here and 10 o'clock where you are. So,
Chris, you want to hop around the backside and say goodbye as well?
Yeah, so we should probably let you guys sign off now and say thanks very, very much. It's been really, really neat. And
it's great to see you guys.
It's really super to see all those familiar faces in there. I miss you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, miss you too. We'll see you soon enough. So
Our through those web links that Mark has been giving you guys and Christina's been sending out.
Yep. So so from EAOS and all of us, thank you so much, guys. And this has been recorded for all time, and so you'll be able to remember the place and time. And we'll get the EAOS people that weren't here to watch it. So we'll let you go and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck with the end of the semester, everyone, and we'll see you in July.
Yeah, okay. How about a hand for these guys? See you.
Thanks a lot.
At the end of winter. Okay, bye.
Yeah, see you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.